Hello.
What up, everyone?
Yeah. Welcome back to JA Millionaire. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Jasmine and this is Angelica. We are two ambitious Latina women sharing our journey from humble beginnings to millionaires. We talk about overcoming challenges, building an elite mindset, and our goal is to hopefully inspire other women like you from underprivileged backgrounds to pursue their dreams. Now, let's get right into it. I'm so excited for today. We are talking all things inspiration. We wanted to do a fun show today on movies that have inspired us, how they've correlated to our lives, and why, we found such inspiration in them. And we're also going to talk about some of the songs that have inspired us over the years. So, yeah, this is so fun. I'm so excited.
This is gonna be so different from our norm, but fun.
Yes, but I think it's fun because then, maybe we'll inspire others to go check out these movies or, because you have to constantly be feeding yourself positive stuff to maintain that positive mindset. And any kind of movies or music like us, we definitely live and breathe off of music, keeps us going. I think is always good. So, again, we're going to be sharing our movies and our songs today. But I want to remind the audience to please comment what movies have inspired you, what songs have inspired you, because I want to know. Like maybe we haven't seen them, and we would love. We're constantly looking for new material to inspire us. So please share your ideas and your tips and your movies and your songs. So
Yeah.
we're gonna kick it off to Angelica. I'm so excited. She hasn't shared everything with me yet, so I'll be hearing it for the first time with you guys. So, Angelica, let's start with your first movie, and why you
Yeah.
chose it.
Cool. And then she's gonna go after me and we'll do back and forth so that way you guys can kind of get where we're going with our drift. But my first movie was Matilda. That was like always for me. I always felt very similar to her in many ways when I was a child because in the movie the movie's about, and I wrote this down, so forgive me for looking down. It's about a young, exceptional, intelligent girl. She was underestimated and mistreated by her neglected parents and head mistress of the school, Miss Trunchbull. And even though she had all that going on, like her parents, they were breaking the law and selling vehicles and like changing the mileage and cheating good people out of their money. Um, and Matilda knew, like I did, when my parents were selling drugs, that it just wasn't normal. Like they weren't good people for doing that.
Like something
Um,
wasn't right.
right. And it was very, and my husband has never seen this movie. And
Hmm.
so when I showed it to him for the first time, he was like, oh my gosh, that was just like you. Because I've always explained to him, like, I never fitted in with my two parents. And I'm close to my dad. I love my dad. That's my favorite person. But when I was younger, I never was like, okay, none of what this is going on is normal. Like, I should not be listening to music that has curse words. I shouldn't be watching movies at 8 years old that have nude, sex scenes, vulgar languages. Like I all like at 9 years old, I was like, I know I'm not supposed to be watching this either. So I felt like Matilda had similar bringings and her upbringing with that stuff. And she did meet a teacher who was very normal, very gentle. Her name was Miss Honey, and Miss Honey kind of protected and helped her later find her power. I think it was like tele. She had like this power.
Telekinesis. Yeah.
There, she had that, and Miss Honey encouraged her to use them, and she didn't make her feel afraid. So when she found out she had that gift, she was like getting back at the people that were like bullying her or hurting other people, and
She
so
could
she
finally
developed.
fight back. Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody knew. Like it was just kind of a cute little secret between them, and I feel that too because she found herself not belonging where her parents were. The teacher picked up on it too, and she was just like, I'll adopt you and I'll be your home. And so to me, it was like, oh my goodness, like it felt so safe when I did watch that movie at a young age to realize, like, okay, these are my circumstances. These are my parents. They're going in and out of prison. I'm at a concert at maybe 7 years old. And I'm watching DJ Laz have a wet t-shirt contest on the stage, and it's Tuesday, and it's well past my bedtime, but there's a limo that we're going home to afterwards. Like, then I'd have to go to school the next day, and these kids are like, "Yeah, I did my homework," and I was like, in my head, I'm like, I was at a whole club last night. Like, I shouldn't have been doing that. And so I knew very fast that like my parents weren't normal parents. And I'm glad that I
Mhm.
did grow up differently because now that I'm an adult and I see different things, I feel I wouldn't say that I got it out of my system, but I realized these were not the right things. And I'm glad that I did experience it versus growing up normally and then being of age to see and do these things. I probably would have turned out a lot more wilder than what I turned out to be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I felt so much that this movie related to me. So I showed it to my husband, and my husband was like, "Yeah, that's you. Those are your parents." And so it just really made complete sense that we both felt that way. And I love to have shown him that because now he can understand how I feel about my family. I love them to death, but like we don't fit lifestyles. And I don't know if that's because of the gap that they spent in prison and then them getting out. Like I'm not the person you were. I was 8 years old and you got out when I was 21. So there's a huge gap here that we don't have filled. So you have to get to know me. I have to get to know you. There's still times where I'm like, okay, these are my boundaries and you're crossing them. And they don't know what those are yet. And so I'm teaching them how to love me and things like that. So I very much felt very resonated with that movie. And it was a big inspiration on my part, seeing it at an early age, knowing the fact that I had these two people that were my parents, knowing that they weren't always good people really helped me find a sense of peace that I was one day going to be my own person and not have to be held back by these two people just because they were my parents.
Yeah.
It's just, if it makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it totally
Yeah.
makes sense. That's such a cute one. I would have never thought of that movie, but like it totally makes sense. When you said Matilda, I'm like, I totally get why you chose that. Like it's perfect. Yeah. I
Yeah.
How cute. I never thought of that. Like that totally fits. Oh, I'm glad you found
Yeah.
inspiration and solace in that there would be a happy ending.
I know. And it really, whenever I showed my husband, he was very like, oh, he understood that I was very, at my age, I was very smart about the things that I said or what I learned. And I was very self aware at a very young age. It was kind of scary, but it made sense now, like going through college and everything, that I was who I was at that age because the amount of self awareness I had. And that'll go into my next movie to explain what I mean by that. But I want to hear your movie because you didn't tell me any of them yet.
Okay. Mine are a little bit like lighter. Like I'm but they've always motivated me. The first one, and I'm sure a lot of people have this one, is Legally Blonde with Elle Woods. I loved this movie, and I know she was going for like her law degree and she was going like into law school, but for me, it was motivating because I was looking at it through the lens of somebody who was going into college. And so I felt like she was very motivating because there's like a scene where like she was doing all this for a guy, she was trying to get into law school for this guy, to be good enough for this guy. And there was points in my life where I felt like all I was doing was trying to be enough for some guy or pursue when I'm dealing with some guy. I had to be this, I had to be that. And she got into the college and she thought, okay, for sure he'll propose to me if I get into this college. And turns out like she got in, she did everything, and she still wasn't good enough for this dude. Like this, and there's a scene, and I'm going to quote it. She says, "I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I?" And he's like, "Oh, Elle, come on, just forget it." And she walks away, and she's like, "I'll show you how valuable. I'll show you how valuable Elle Woods could be." And after that, like she was now no longer doing it for him; she was doing it for herself. And I felt like that was my mission when I was going through college. I was doing it for myself. And I don't know, I just watching her through the movie and still keep her femininity and grace because, that's always been a big part of me. Like I love, you know, being dressed up and elegant and put together and that while working on her, degree and just the woman she became in the process. What I thought was so awesome is sometimes what looks like tragedy, like a breakup, or just might be the fuel that you needed to kickstart, into the direction you were meant to be. And in that tragedy, in that moment, she could have crumbled and went back home. And she's like, F that. Let me show you how valuable Elwoods could be. And I think it's
Yeah.
just a great lesson for
And then
anyone.
after it, she realized that she didn't even like him.
Yeah, she did. She was like, if I'm going to be, I can't even remember the quote, but she's like, if I'm going to, make it to a senator or something like that, I can't be with some bonehead.
Yeah, it was really good. I didn't
She
like how
realized
she,
her worth.
yeah, almost bullied into like not feeling enough or adequate enough to go to these schools because it seems like these kids came from very prestigious, prominent family backgrounds, and so she maybe I don't it didn't go into her childhood much, but
Yeah.
I
But
felt that that
she
was like a
she came from like money, but it wasn't like she came from a prestigious family. Like she came from like Beverly Hills or something. But
right,
there is a part that I really love, and I think every woman should kind of take this is if you see the end, she goes to court and she's able to like defend like her biggest idol. Like she's a lady that came from her same sorority and all of that. But she they trust her to go ahead and defend her with like some this guy like observes her or whatever. But the thing is, she ends up winning the case because of a hunch based on her particular background, like on beauty, because of like she figured out this girl must have committed the crime because her perm was still intact. All that to say is sometimes it's going to be your own gifts that let you shine. And like there's a world around you that says you need to conform. You need to dress like this. You need to act like this. And she was like, no, I'm going to wear my pink. I'm going to stand out. I'm going to do. She was able to thrive being her unique, authentic self. And that's how she won the case, was using her own skills and talents. And I know anybody hearing this is like, you're talking about Legally Blonde. That's so cheesy. But there really was some really beautiful teaching moments in this movie that really spoke to me, especially in my younger years while I was going through college. So that one
yeah.
was one of mine.
I love that you could find movies that you could learn lessons from and just be able to relate to them in certain altitudes of life. Like, I think it is important. I know TV may not be good, but there are a lot of valuable lessons that come out of some of these movies. So I agree with you.
Oh,
Legally Blonde
totally.
is definitely like top five favorite movies.
And what's your next one?
So this one, I don't talk to one of my siblings because we don't really have, there's just boundaries and some people don't like boundaries kind of thing, and so I don't really talk too much of her. But when I did, I remember her telling me, she was like, you need to see A Million Miles Away. And at the time we were on good terms, and this is like a year or two ago, and I was like, oh, okay. She goes, no, you need to see it. Like, I cried, it was such a good movie, and it reminded me so much about you. And I was like, that's odd. Like, I was just like, it's just a movie, why would it be about me? So, oh my goodness. Then we stopped talking, like we fell out, and it was the worst, right? Because I watched the movie. It's called Million Miles Away, and it's about this astronaut. And his name's Jose Hernandez. He's a migrant farm worker. His family's, he's like generations of a migrant farm worker, and they move where the crops are the best all the time. And so the kid's in school, the teacher's great to the kid, and he really believed the intentions when the teacher said, you could be anything you want to be. And so he drew this picture of like an astronaut. He's like, I want to be an astronaut. And wholeheartedly the lady was like, yeah, you're going to be that. And even the kid was like, oh yeah, I can do that. Like, you're in America, it's a dream, right? Well, he had a lot of setbacks. I'm reading from here because these are like a short part of what I'd taken from the notes. And it says, even though he had a lot of things in his way, like setbacks, and being, his family kind of ingrained it in his head, like, you're going to be a farmer. Look at my hands. These are the hands you're going to have. And I could see his little brain working at like 6 years old. He's like, I'm not doing that. Like, and the teacher knew that the kid would move like all the time because they had to go where the crops were. And that's how they made their money. So one of these days, the teacher pulls the parents to the side and they're like, she's like, you can't do that with your children's education. Education is very imperative. Like, you need to stick to it. Like, this is education. You need to take it more serious than you're not. And so the parents are like, okay, I guess. And the parents don't really know any better, of course, because their education levels, I think, are like third grade level. They like stopped at third grade, went straight into working. So they don't understand the concept of at all the reality of what she's
Yeah,
trying
they're
to
just trying
explain.
to survive. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the family finally stays, and get this. So he goes through college and graduates. He does really, really well. And then by the time he's done with college, he actually applies to NASA because he wants to be an astronaut. He applied 11 times to get into the program, and they were like, no, no, no. So one day he meets his wife, they get married, they go on and have kids. And the wife opens up the letter and she's like, "How come you didn't tell me that you wanted to be an astronaut?" He said, "Yeah, I did tell you one time, but you kind of laughed at it." She's like, "Well, I didn't know you were being for real." And he was like, "No, I want to be an astronaut," because she was getting the letters of, him being declined or whatever. And so she was like, "Jose, this is a really bad, like, no, this isn't a dream to play with. If you're going to do it, you should have freaking told me that you wanted to go to space. Like, I'm your wife. Why wouldn't you tell me that you
Right.
wanted to go to space?" Like, and he was like, "Yeah, I do." And then so she wakes him up, and it reminds me so much of myself in many ways. I'll tell you why after I explain it all. So she goes, "Jose," he goes, "Yeah." He's like, "What do these people have that you don't have? Like, what is the difference between these NASA people getting into this program that you're not getting into because you've been declined so many times? Like, why do you know that you're not getting declined? Where's the answer?" So then he answers, he's like, "Well, they all have a pilot's license. They all have like scuba diving training and, boats under the water. They all do scuba diving. They have to have like 500 hours to become a pilot. They have to have a military background, blah, blah, blah." And then she looks at him and she goes, "Well, go. What are you doing? Go do it. I have a restaurant now. You help me run that, but you need to take care of this because you're not going to get in without doing that." So he spends like years to go and become a pilot, the scuba diving, and in between that, he's helping with the crops and he's helping with the restaurant. And then the wife goes, "Oh no, you're hand delivering this to NASA's headquarters. You're not mailing it in." So he goes, and the astronaut guy is just there, like giving a tour or talking to someone. And he goes, "Here you go, sir. I brought in my application." And the guy goes, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm Jose Hernandez." And he goes, "Sir," like he's like, "Dude, you've applied 12, 11 times. Like there's, he's trying to say, I can't, like, you're not going to get in." So then Jose goes, "No, listen." He's like, "I did this, 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 and I went to Serbia for work and I learned Russian. Like you're gonna, you're gonna take me serious, It's like
Yes.
so determined." And next thing you know, they call him in and they're like, "You're gonna go on the spaceship. You ready?" And he's like freaking out because, like, I don't even think he realizes that it's real life yet. Like he's like, "Oh crap, this is actually happening." And so, yeah, sure enough, he goes. And then his teacher, the day before he goes, comes and visits him and shows him the picture she drew from like second grade and was like, "I always believed in you." And I cried. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so crazy." And so it's crazy because education, that one lady said you could be anything you wanted to do. And he stuck that and she kept the letter. She's like, "I've always believed in you, blah, 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 right?" But the way I took it was it related to me in 2 points of my life. They're very important. I don't really share them too much. But when my parents went to prison, I went shelter to shelter, shelter to shelter because nobody wanted to take care of three girls. And so when my parents were forced to give up their rights as our parents, the only thing that they said was, "Do not separate our daughters." So of course nobody in Child Protective Services could take in three kids. So we moved, and then we had family somewhere in West Texas, like a small town. Well, mind you, like me and my sisters grew up in Dallas, like born and raised, and we only knew 5A schools. So I get there, it's a 2A school. Everybody's wearing boots, belts, starch jeans, starch shirts. I mean, as Texas as it can get, like
What's a
very country.
two-way school?
So 5A school is when they have like more than a certain amount of kids. So like you have, okay, for instance, in Dallas, our schools were so large that we had to cut our classes into 2 different days. So you had certain classes for A day, and then you had another class for B day. So you had 4 classes because it was such a large school. So you would only do 4 classes, and it was an hour and a half. That was A day, and then B day you would do the other classes. It was an hour and a half because those schools were so large. So when I got to like that little town, there was only like the class of my sixth grade class was like 120 kids versus in Texas, it was like more than 300, 400 people per grade. And so
Wow.
when I got there, everybody knew everybody from their chickens' names to their horses' names. Like I was like, what? The only reason why we ended up here was because it was the only side of the family my mother had that could take in 3 kids. And get this, I try out for cheerleading. Nobody knows me. And there's like 40 other girls. I'm in sixth grade. I try out. I did cheerleading when I was a kid. So I was like, this is easy. I'm going to do it. I didn't even make it. But I didn't realize that you had to try out not only in front of the judges, you had to try out in front of the whole school. So the whole school has a vote.
Oh, wow.
And nobody knew me. and nobody knew who I was, none of that. All these people grew up with each other, they share farms together, all that stuff, crops, you name it, they have it. Then I was like, that's not right. Like, I just didn't feel that it, like, I always wanted to be a cheerleader. Why, you know? So then I wait another year. And then I'm like in seventh grade going into eighth, and I'm like, I'm going to try out again. And most girls don't. They kind of just they're like, no, it's embarrassing. I'm not going to do that or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's not for
And
me, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, and they just give up. And so I went in and I was like, I'm going to try out again. And then, of course, I didn't make it again. And to me, I didn't know that the loyalty of the country people, they're going to put their people in their city first. If you're born and raised here, they honor you. The loyalty's different. I don't know. And so I was like, that's odd. Like, why wouldn't I make it? And so, see, my aunt would get mad and kick us out. So then we ended up in different shelters, different times. So we were always just moving back and forth, back and forth. So I remember the last time we moved back, I think it was I wasn't there for freshman year, but I was there for sophomore year. And then I said, you know what? These people ought to know me by now. It doesn't take that long. I've been in this school a total of 3 years only in that school because I was in Dallas the rest of the time. But I tried out again, and there was 10 girls. No, there was 9 girls trying out. All of them were cheerleaders before, and there was only going to be 8 girls. I was the ninth that tried out. So the girls scratched my name off of the list, and my sister was like, "Why'd you do that?" Like she was getting on to them, you know. And then I went and rewrote my name on the list because if you didn't have to have 9, there was no tryouts. They were just gonna make it, so they crossed my name out. Then for days, yeah. So for days in school, the girls, and it's so crazy because they tried to be my friends when I was a grown up. Like I was like, what the, excuse my language, but it's a really tough story to tell without getting upset about it. Well, I
Yeah.
remember going into science class, and the coach Moreland was his name, and it was science. I sat at the very front because I struggled learning a lot more because I moved so much, so I would never sit back there. I sat back here, and I remember the girls throwing. I remember their names too. One started with the R, one with the J, but for legal purposes, I'm going to leave those names out. They sat behind me and threw like spitballs on my hair and picked on me. And then the teacher wouldn't be there. He'd be like patrolling the hall. And they would be like, I don't know why you're trying out for cheerleading. The money that you're going to spend for cheerleading, you should use to buy pills to gain weight because you're too skinny to be a cheerleader. And then the next day would come and they'd be like, I don't even know why you're trying out. Your mommy and daddy are in jail. Why? No one's going to come see you cheer. And I was like, dang, like, what did I do to you? Like,
Dang.
so they would cross my name out. And then I went back and I put my name back. And then when we tried out, I was in the library. The announcement came on, and I'm literally like about to pee myself because I'm like, this is going to be embarrassing if I don't make it. Next thing you know, the girl that did all that to me didn't make it, and I did. Yeah, I know. And then as we grew up, she tried to like stay in touch with me and be my friend, and I was too. And then finally, I got tired of it, and I said, you know what? You never apologized for what you did to me. You just wanted to use me. Like you were just a total whatever, right? So I didn't give up and I made it on the third time. And yeah, I remember that. And then the next time, the reason why I say this movie relates so much to me in life, and I think that's why my sister said, this is the movie, you need to watch it, because I had no idea about it until my sister told me about it. And then I remember, and I think I've shared it here before, is when I went to college and I was 18. I was working as a waitress. I went and applied to college and I took the test. It was like a 5 hour test. And literally the lady said, I'm sorry, you're not college level ready. And then I was like, I couldn't literally comprehend that. I was like, it doesn't make sense. So I went outside and then I saw all the BMWs and then I saw all the Brinks and then I saw all the Mercedes. And then I had my music on and I was just like, it didn't make sense that these people got these vehicles without having an education. So I was crying, waiting on my bus. And right before the bus pulled up, I went back inside and I had tears everywhere, mascara, makeup, everywhere. I said, make me college level ready. And the lady was like, you're going to take 7 years to finish. It's not even going to count towards a degree. And I looked at her and I said, make me college level ready. And I did. I spent 3 years not doing any credit courses towards my degree. And then I spent the next 4. So it took me like 6 years to get a college education. And then went and got my master's. I wish I kept that lady's name so I can send her the pictures and the articles that I've been in on the movie, on the news. I was on the news because they were like, we love your story, blah, blah, blah. And so,
Like
yeah.
that Biggie Small song where he's like to that teacher that said I wouldn't amount to
Oh,
anything.
Steve Harvey. Remember that? He like sent the TV. to her? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I was talking about Biggie Smalls. There's like a song he talks about. He's like, to the teacher that
Oh,
said I wouldn't amount to anything.
yep, yep. It was one of those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Steve Harvey said he wanted to be on TV, and the teacher told him he would never be on TV. So now every year for Christmas, he mails her a TV.
But I love this story because like as we were talking this morning, I told you I said I realize I have a new trigger. And it totally aligns with this because it is so here's my new trigger. My trigger is when I tell people what I'm doing, that I'm on this entrepreneur route and, and I understand the risks I'm taking on. I understand I could either be a multimillionaire or I could be broke trying to figure out where I'm going to live. I understand that. I am not dumb. I am not naive. I understand the risk I'm taking. And so when I meet other people that hear about it, they're like, well, just don't give up. And the first million is the hardest. And I could not be more triggered because I'm like, then you don't know me at all. Because giving up is not in my DNA. Giving up is not in my motherfucking vocabulary. Like, I don't give up. I go for broke. I either do this or I die. I do this or I go broke. Like, there is no other option for me, which will totally align with the songs that I picked, and you guys will see this. But that's like you, like we like giving up is just not in our DNA. Once we've made a decision, then we're like, okay, well, how are the successful people doing it? Like the people
Like
who
the
have
movie.
accomplished it, what did they
Yeah,
do? Like this astronaut, like, okay, what am I lacking? What am I missing? It's not about, am I worthy enough? Hell no. Yes, yes, we are worthy enough. Just what is it? What are we missing? That's what, like, yeah. Want to get
I
my forever
know.
going?
Yeah. And then
Like,
what about I
how
see
dare
people,
you? You,
they think we're like Barney externally, but
yeah.
really we're like internally we're like Denzel Washington. Don't
Oh, we're
mess with
so
us.
dangerous because we will
Yeah.
go for broke. We will,
Yeah.
we will put it all on the line. We'll, mm, mm,
Yeah, I think because we know we're our own, like we're big sisters, and that's a different kind of person. Like not everybody's a big sister, so they don't really resonate with how we feel and what we say. Like we are basically daddy,
mhm.
and that it is to me. I feel that way. Like I don't think that people understand the pressure you have when you're a big sister. You're basically mom, and you're
Yeah,
your mom's mom because of the generation that we grew up with, and learning how they didn't know how to operate for us in life. Like we had to take that responsibility and become our own daddy. And so it
yeah.
is a trigger when somebody kind of downplays it and like, oh, you're doing so good, keep going, don't give up. And it's like, I raised my whole siblings. How are you going to tell me? Like, like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think
Make it make
I
sense.
had some more movies, but I don't want to run out of time. I want us to be able to talk about our songs. So actually,
Yes.
this is perfect. So I have two songs, and Angelica has two songs. So mine is, and this is a perfect segue. This song has had me inspired since high school, which will age me. And this song still to this day, and then even the movie, everything about it, all of it together. There's nothing more motivating when you have nothing but a dollar and a dream, because there's
Yeah.
nothing. Your back's up against the wall, and that's it. It is do or die. It is there. Failure is not an option. So this song for me, that has been my number one motivating song that put me through college. That's still today on my playlist of motivation. It is "Lose Yourself" from Eminem. And I know, I know. He had magic, man. That song was magic in a bottle. Like you could
Yeah.
hear the desperation, the like, I gonna go out swinging. Like, so here's one of the lyrics that I pulled was you better lose yourself in the music. The moment you own it, you better never let it go. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. And I'm not trying to rap. This
No.
opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better lose yourself in the music. The moment you own it, you better never let it go. So basically what he's saying is like when you get your shot, when you get your moment, that is the time you jump, you go for it. You don't let the moment pass you. You go for it because sometimes these opportunities only happen once in a lifetime. And the other part was success is my only option, failure's not. That has always been my mantra in life is success is the only option. The only option. If you see me broke, it's because I'm not done yet. I'm not there yet.
Wow, you're on fire. I don't even know if my song pals in comparison here.
Well, my movies couldn't compare to yours. You had a better story with your movies, but
Oh no.
music. All right, now go ahead and tell me your song, and
No,
then I
you
have
had
a.
another, but you had
Oh, you
another
want to do
movie,
all
right?
both of them? Okay. So my second one is How Far I'll Go. And that one's from the movie Moana. And I know, and I go from Eminem to Disney. But this one, um, this I love this song because she talks about, I'll just read it to you and then I can talk about it. The lyric was, see the light as it shines on the sea, it's blinding, but no one knows how deep it goes. And it seems like it's calling out to me, so come find me and let me know what's beyond the line. Will I cross that line? And so she says it again. And then she says, if the wind in my sail on the seas stays behind me, one day I'll know how far I'll go. And this for me was as even as a child, I've always had really big dreams. And my mom would always tell me, like, how the hell did you come from this family? Like, you are so different. You're built different. She's like, I don't even know how you even want these things. You never grew up with these things. She's like, I don't even
Same,
know where
same
you
for
come
me.
from. So to me, it was always like, what I want lies beyond the horizon. I don't know what's over there. I don't even know how to get there, but my heart calls to this horizon. My heart calls to this greater purpose in life. And, I don't know what's on the other side, but it's drawing to me, and I have no idea how far I'll go. And even now, as far as I've come, I'm, I still don't understand. I don't know how much further I'll go because it's relentless. We just keep getting
Yeah.
pulled towards that horizon, which goes further and further. So
Oh
those
my
are my
goodness.
songs.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm stunned because you are that way and I grew up that way too. Like I remember telling, oh, I want to be a lawyer and I want to live in a high rise and I want nice modern furniture and I knew I wanted a Range Rover before I knew what a Range Rover was. And even my parents were like, I mean, we're drug dealers, but we can't afford that. So where are you getting it from, And it changed for me to feel and think those ways too, because honestly, I did the 23andMe because Carl couldn't even believe. Like after I showed him the movie Matilda, he was like, "I don't know if your parents are your parents." Like, and I was like, "You're right." Like, there's no reason why I have a taste for all these nice things and my parents are not. You know what I mean? They never showed me these things, so I was low key praying that they weren't my parents. And then when I found out, I was like, "Oh, all right, they're my parents."
You're just built different.
Yeah, so I resonate a lot with you, but 100% agree with you. My song, like all time favorite music candy head hype song is it actually helped me get the cheerleading spot. I was working at a snow cone stand and it was a big old cement pavement, and I remember having the little iPod shuffle, like the little square ones I had, and I had my earphones on, and I remember every day under the shed at the snow cone stand, it was like a main road, so people were passing every day. I was trying out for cheerleading, and for some reason, that song, that it's called "All of the Lights" by Kanye West. That song, like when it came on, I was a different person. Sorry, I'm stroking, and I remember replaying it and replaying it. It was like for me, imagining that I was already a cheerleader, hearing those lights on, doing the pep rallies. I don't know, going to those high school pep rallies always felt like a movie. And it was like, oh, this is definitely for me. Like I know I'm gonna be in one of those. So whenever that the trumpets would play, that was it for me. It was like all of the lights, and it reminded me of the football field. And I was like, that's for me. Like, so I listened to that song, I think maybe 422 times is what I saw on my history or whatever when I plugged it into the computer. And that was only within a week span. So every day I was doing my cheers practicing to get into the crew or whatever, but I was listening to that music because I was manifesting what I looked like, what my makeup looked like, what I everything. So the lines, it wasn't really a certain lyric. It um, I just felt like the turn up the lights in here, baby, extra bright. I want to see all of this lights in here, baby. You know what I need. Want to see everything, want to see all of the lights. And then it goes into like fast cars, shooting stars, all of the lights until it's Vegas everywhere we are. And so for me, when it was football, it was like lights, firecrackers. Like that was my show. And so when I used that song, it really propelled me to be like, this is for me. So when I was drilling that in my head, I was already imagining myself on the field and just boom, like cheering and rocking out. And so that song really helped me make the team. Like that was my,
That
still my go.
totally
Yeah.
makes sense. Did the lyrics say until it's Vegas everywhere we go?
Yeah.
Like, so it goes back to your comment that you said in another episode, how you were saying, I am the magic. So it's like until
Yeah.
you're Vegas everywhere you go. Like
Oh, that's so
you were
sweet.
harnessing the light to make sure that
Oh.
I am the lights, all of the
Yeah.
lights.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good resignation. I didn't even think about that. Oh man. Well, I listened to it for years and even till this day I'll put it on and I'm like getting out of my Aston Martin, like cruising to my law firm, passing my watch box business, whatever, right? Like that's still my go-to. And then there's another one that keeps me grounded and it's by Philip Phillips and it's called Home, and it's a very like down to earth sad song, but it's good because for me I needed this kind of song because I for a while when you don't have your parents and you grow up the way that I did, you don't even know who you are when you know your parents leave at 8 or 9 years old. And my mom didn't get out till I was 23, my dad didn't get out till I was 21. At that they both went back. Mom did a total of 17, dad did a total of 13. So I for a lot of that song really helped me understand who I was because in the line it says, settle down, it'll all be clear. So for me, it was like, chill, everything's gonna work out. It says, don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. And to me, I always felt fear because I was like, I don't even know who I am. My parents are gone. I don't even know who they are. And so I always felt like doubt. I felt lost. And so whenever I heard this song, I would always cry and like listen to it on my own because I needed those crying sessions. But it says, they'll fill you with fear. The trouble it may drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. And then it says, just know you aren't alone because I'm going to make this place your home. So for me, no matter whether my parents were incarcerated or I was in a shelter, it didn't matter wherever I was as long as I knew that everything after 18 years old, when I didn't have to be incarcerated with all those other kids, I knew that I was going to make my own home one day. And I knew that wherever my home was where I had the peace, I had food, I had water, I had safety, and that was to me that was my home. So every time I hear that song, it gives me so much solace to my life because it's a different meaning for that song. Like I don't even know why he wrote that song. Maybe he felt a similar lifestyle. I don't know, but just hearing that song just brought me so much clarity because it's like I could have my parents in prison. I could have sisters doing this and that, but it doesn't matter because no matter where I stop and stand, this is my home. Like I am the person that makes my home. You know, I had to always make my home. So, you know, even moving to the Northeast, like I don't even think leaving home was much of a big change for me because I knew whatever I had in my heart was my home. My clothes are my home. My hair is my home. My skin is my home. Like I don't need external validation to complete my home. Like that's just my home, you know.
Yeah.
My fingers, my beautiful skin, like that's my home. Like there's nothing else that makes that my home. So those are the two songs that helped me. One to stay grounded and one to stay motivated, you know. So yeah, those are my songs.
Those are beautiful. I love it.
I know, I loved yours too. It's like we
Oh,
have one good one to go hard, and then we have that one like bring me down to earth little girl. Like we have our little girl, and then we have our daddy side of us. So it's
oh
good.
my God, that's such a great observation. I never thought about that, but it's so true because we've had to be our own daddy in a sense. You know, we've had to create that masculinity, that safety, that shelter for ourselves. And I'm so glad you brought that up because people tend to see that in us and they don't realize that it's actually something we've built out of necessity, out of needing to feel safe. But deep down, we are just that sweet, soft little girl that was just really dying to have some kind of shelter and safety and security.
Yeah. And on top of that, being the older sibling, not only did we have to care for our siblings, but we had to care for our parents too. Like, it's still their first time living, also. Like, it's so hard to be a parent to my mom, like, or my
Yeah.
father, and I don't think that that's not talked about or vocalized enough when it comes to our backgrounds, like first generation, second generation, like, our parents are still learning how to grow up themselves. And I think that's the toughest part, is like parenting your parents,
Yeah.
or, because you've always had to do it for your sisters. So it's like everybody comes to you, and it's like, oh, it's just a tough pickle to be in, because it's like we didn't ask for it. And I think that's where we have to come up with we are our daddies, because nobody really, they built that around us. Like, we had to become our own daddy. And so being everyone else's daddy was something we had to do anyway, but being our own was even harder for, I feel,
Yeah. I think like for that, for me, it is taken a while for me to learn how to become softer because I led with that masculinity as a protective instinct. I didn't trust anybody. I couldn't rely on anybody. I couldn't allow any room for unpredictability. I had to create that stability in me and control everything. But what I can say is through time, through therapy, through healing, now I'm allowing people to see the sweet girl inside that was always inside. She's loving, she's nurturing, she's caring, she's patient, she's kind, she's gentle. But nobody ever got to see that because I kept her so protected.
right.
Um, and so, anybody who's watching this, if you are that woman that they're like, oh my God, you're such a dude, you don't even need a man. And you're like, what would you need a man for? Like, people, let me say, I see you because I've been told those things too, but it's just because we've never been in a position where we felt safe enough. But once you've done the work and you've done the healing, people will be able to get to see that the feminine side of you come out eventually.
But on your own time,
On your own
like,
time, yes. And it
it's
doesn't
not.
necessarily mean that you need a man in your life to let it come out. In Angelica's case, that's really beautiful that she did, and she has a really supportive man that allows it, for her to flourish in her femininity. Is that a yes?
That's a yes. He's a little more like, he stays on top of me. He's like, you need to go do your nails. And I'm like,
Mm.
the old me was just like, am I gonna have enough to do my nails? Like, I gotta pay rent. So I'm
Yeah,
barely getting to that life acceptance to be like, oh dang, I do need to go do my nails and not be told that by my man, because I feel
yeah.
like he's like, girl, go be a girl. Like,
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Like on my side, as a single woman, I'm starting to see more of my femininity get to be expressed only because I trust myself now. Like I trust myself that I'm not going to put myself around anybody that can hurt me and that I will be able to excuse myself if I find myself around either a man or people, whoever that may be dangerous. I know that I'm strong enough to voice discomfort. I'm strong enough to voice my boundaries and I'm strong enough to excuse myself if the setting no longer feels safe. So, knowing all those things and how much I trust myself now that I can advocate for myself and be strong for myself, I actually can show up now in my best feminine self because I'm like, honey, it's a privilege to get to be in my presence. So, yes, I will dress feminine, I will be feminine, I will be soft. And then now I can, I don't know, such a beautiful place to be in is it is a privilege to be around me. And I don't mean that in a cocky way. It's this is a beautiful woman that I have taken very good care of. So if you are not showing her the love and respect and all of that, then I just go ahead and excuse myself. Doesn't need to be big, it doesn't need to be dramatic. Just
we're just
it's
matching energies.
just matching energy. So now I just lead with I trust
Yeah.
myself. I trust myself.
And when you get there, you'll be able to stand up for yourself differently, and a more loving, subtle matter, where these people that you are uncomfortable with, if you explain it to them,
Mhm.
it's in the ball's in their court. You're like, hey, this made me uncomfortable. This is where I am now. It may not be where you are or where you're going, but at the same time, just because we have certain levels or knowledges of life doesn't mean that um, I have to be living under someone else's experiences or traumas. So I always make sure to voice like, hey, this may not work with you, but I don't think that's a trauma that I have. Maybe, and it's nothing personal. In fact, with my siblings, it's a little more harder and easier to gauge where I'm like, okay, this is a boundary, but I'm not going to cuss you out. Like, this is just
Hmm.
where I stand. This is my piece. And you stand your ground and you say, hey, I don't like A, B, C, D. And if these people can't correct A, B, C, D, then you're right. It is a privilege to be a part of my life because that is my wall. That is my minimum. And you're not passing that. Like, you gotta. If you can't respect yourself, people are not going to respect you.
Yes, so true. You set the standard. You tell people how they're going to treat you.
Yeah. You
And
teach people how to treat you. Dr. Phil, life lesson or something. 10 laws of life.
yeah,
You
you
teach
teach
people how to.
people how to treat you. And
There you go.
whatever you expect is what you will most likely get. So have high expectations because that's what you will most likely get. Only get those high expectations or what you tolerate. So
Yeah.
we're running out of time here. I hope our stories today and the music and the movies you found inspiring. Again, please share your movies and music with us because we want to know what you guys are finding inspiration on. We could always use some good inspiration ourselves. So don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week. Until next time, keep chasing your dreams and making them a reality. Bye.
Bye, guys.